Public engagement, or what I would call community engagement, is essential if we genuinely want to connect to people, groups, and communities.
We've been working in partnership with the University of Dundee for many years now on lots of different projects, including community outreach programmes, Dundee Science Festival and our Science at Home kits.
The quality of the evidence of impact has been so strong that we were awarded an Audience Impact Award by Fantastic for Families.
To me, the most important in academia, and that is public engagement and education about good scientific practice.
My name's Matthew Jarron, I'm the University Museum Curator, and a large part of my role involves engaging a wide range of audiences with our amazing collections and the stories they can tell about the university's diverse and pioneering history.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Stephen Fry Public Engagement Awards. It's a fantastic time for the great university that is a University of Dundee at the core of a great city of Dundee itself. I have the pleasure and privilege to be the Principal and Vice-Chancellor of the university. My name is Iain Gillespie, and I, together with virtually, but we're all virtual these days, Stephen Fry, our previous rector, and of course the individual who's behind these awards, will be hosting the next hour and a half as we see and hear about some really outstanding examples of public engagement. Public engagement is something which is very important to us in Dundee, and I say that for the city, I say that for the university. It's very important for our staff, it's very important for our students. It's a really essential part of what being a great university is about. And so it's an essential part of the development, the contribution and the learning that we offer to our students and to our staff. And I'm delighted that these awards celebrate achievement, really great public engagement at a team level and at an individual level, both early career or postgraduate research students, as well as more senior staff. So we'll be hearing this afternoon about nominations for and the winners of our 3 Stephen Fry Awards, Public Engagement Project of the Year, which is a team award, the Engaged Researcher of the Year, which is focused on a more senior member of staff, and really excitingly, the Engaged Early Career Researcher or Postgraduate Research Student of the Year. As I say, really embedding the ideas of public engagement into the educational journey and the real being of who we are at Dundee and transforming lives. And what I'd like to do is to kick off by really celebrating one of our most transformative individuals who actually won a public engagement prize twice, the only person ever to do so. And that's Eddie Small. Eddie, as many of you will know, sadly passed away last year, and we feel was lost very deeply. Eddie was an incredibly energetic friend to many around the university and a great champion and a great ambassador of public engagement. He was a historian, a playwright, a creative writing tutor, as well as a great friend, and as I say, a great officer driving public engagement in humanities. And he exemplified that impact, that social reform, that contribution to society that I certainly want to see our universities to deliver. For example, he wrote a wonderful book on Mary Lily Walker, one of the great social reformers in Dundee in the 19th century, and a chronicler of some of the challenges faced then. Eddie believed that history and public engagement could really bring people together. And so to pay tribute to Eddie, let me introduce our real host and the brains behind this event and the individual who's given his name to it. We have a video from Stephen Fry.
Now, a tribute to Eddie Small. Eddie Small was a writer, historian, teacher, colleague, and friend. He was a well-known face in Dundee literary circles and wrote the play The Four Marys, as well as the books Mary Lily Walker, The Forgotten Visionary of Dundee, the latter of which saw Eddie research the history of death in Scotland, with an emphasis on practices and rituals surrounding bereavement. Eddie's legendary tours of the city provided lovely insights into Dundee's history. The Four Marys had the same goal, examining the impact of Mary Slessor, Mary Brooksbank, Mary Walker and Mary Ann Baxter on the city, as Eddie himself explained. Eddie believed in the value of history in bringing communities together, said Caroline Brown of the archives team. He was passionate about sharing his knowledge of the past and understood how important it is for people to know where they have come from and to be given opportunities to remember in order to live happier lives in the present and future. He was also a strong advocate for awareness around disability, participating in the Hands of X project. That brought together design and disability advocacy in an innovative way. It was a personal project for Eddie, as he himself wore a prosthetic hand. When the Hands of X team won the Stephen Fry Award for Public Engagement in 2018, this was Eddie's second success, having also won in 2013 for the In Memoriam anthology that celebrates the people who donate their bodies to science when they die. Professor Divya Jindal-Snape, who wrote a novel that drew on her experience of fibromyalgia and recalls Eddie's generosity, kindness and motivating nature. We met several times, and he would read the manuscript going into detail about the characters and storylines, she said. He really helped me in seeing the characters from the reader's perspective. We talked a lot about our experiences with disability. The outpouring of grief and reminiscence on social media testifies to Eddie's generosity as a teacher, his great warmth, and his sense of humour. Eddie gave you everything you need from a friend, his kind words, his encouragement, and, the most valuable of all, his time, said Mara Crowe. Eddie was one of the university's great characters, a relentlessly optimistic figure who strode around campus, sharing a cheery word with all he met on his way, and from meeting with collaborators. Museum's creator Matthew Jarron summed Eddie up perfectly by saying, his enthusiasm was infectious, and the empathy that he showed for others allowed him to connect strongly with so many different audiences. He was loved by university staff, students, and members of the public alike. Always modest, mindful, and supportive of the needs of others, Eddie Small will be remembered as a warm, brilliantly talented, and beloved member of our community. Goodbye, Eddie.
Well, thank you, Stephen. That's really quite a tribute to quite a man, quite a personality, and as Stephen has said, a great friend to many, to all indeed, and a great champion for our university. Eddie would have loved being here to celebrate what we're here to see next, because we're here to celebrate. We're here to recognize and celebrate and share with all of you in the audience some of the really, really exciting work that's been going on. And please participate in the extent that we can. We're on a screen, so it's a bit difficult to jump up and down and cheer in a way that we would if we were all together. But use the Q&A function. Ask questions. We'll have a short Q&A session at the end when I'll bring in the wonderful winners to answer whatever you want to ask. But also, say things, share, participate, be part of this really important public engagement event. It's a joyous event and is one that, as I say, I'm incredibly privileged to participate in, basking in the glory, as one of my colleagues said earlier, of all this great work that's going on. So let's get to it. Let's look and see who the nominees are for the Stephen Fry Public Engagement Awards this year. wow is all I can say. It's an extraordinary body of accomplishments with some wonderful images, some great testimonials, and some truly, truly superb work. Goodness me, it must have been a tough for the judges to choose the winners from all these fantastic, fantastic projects and initiatives. And so for the winners, we're going to go back to Stephen. Stephen.
Hello, this is Stephen Fry, wishing he were in Dundee. It's the 2021 Stephen Fry Public Engagement Awards, now in its 10th year, would you believe? And I've still not managed to come to bestow these wonderful, wonderful awards personally. It's because I've been ridiculously busy over the last 10 years, and it's just very bad luck that that busyness seems to have coincided always with the date of these awards. And I really genuinely do mean it. I have tried, and my office, as I grandly call it, has also tried as hard as possible. But each time through some probably good luck for you, but bad luck for me, because I miss Dundee. I had such a happy time there in my 2 terms as rector, and I miss those rectal duties very much indeed. But I'm as proud as punch to have awards named after me, especially as they're public engagement awards, because I'm a great believer in trying to make sure that university towns manage to find ways for the community and the institutions of learning inside that community to be proud of each other, for there to be a reciprocity. The old town and gown enmities and animosities are, I hope, a thing of the past. And Dundee and Dundonians, I know, are very proud of their university, and for damn good reason. Every year it seems to rise and rise in the league tables and in reputation around the world. And I dare to suggest that these public engagement awards and the work that they motivate has a part to play, shall we say, in that success. Anyway, you don't want to hear me babbling on for too long. It's time to get to the winners. I'm delighted to announce them. It's a very exciting moment. The selection panel has bestowed an award, you should know, in each of 3 categories. There's the Public Engagement Project of the Year, which is awarded to a team from the university and from our partnering organisations. There's the Engaged Researcher of the Year and the Engaged Early Career Researcher of the Year categories, which are awarded to an individual member of staff or student. So, the university would like to express its sincerest thanks to all members of the award selection panels. They've done a lot of work. We're indebted to the colleagues, partners and community representatives who help to ensure a fair process and to reinforce our links with the people of Dundee. This year, the university received the highest number of nominations, and the panel was very impressed by the high quality of all of the nominations. In the Engaged Early Career Researcher of the Year category, which rhymes, we received strong nominations from the following, or for the following: Helen Collins, Elizabeth Mills and Paul O'Mahony. In addition, the university wishes to commend the work of Veronica Pravata and Vicky Armstrong. The winner, however, in this category is Laura Jones. Now, Laura is a research student who is helping to break down the barriers that women experiencing commercial sexual exploitation, known as CSE, the barriers that they face in accessing support. Women experiencing CSE, including those selling or exchanging sex, are understood to have limited social support. Laura focuses her research on the formal and informal relationships that can help or hinder exiting CSE. Laura has led an immensely collaborative project and built on a strong system of knowledge exchange. After presenting her work to the Dundee CSE Working Group, she contributed to the Dundee Multi-Agency Guidance for supporting those involved in commercial sexual exploitation, written collaboratively with many partners. The guidance has helped to upskill practitioners working with those experiencing CSE by addressing practitioner concerns, and has increased practitioners' confidence in supporting vulnerable and exploited women. In the Engaged Researcher of the Year category, we received strong nominations for the following: Colin Henderson, Irene Halliburton, Kieran Baxter, Susan Mains, Shauneen McDougall, Suzanne Douce. In addition, the university wishes to commend the work of James Chalmers and Keith Johnston. And the winner of Engaged Researcher of the Year is Andrea Rodriguez. Before becoming an academic, Andrea was an engaged practitioner with extensive experience in working on social projects based in favelas in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. In her current research work in Dundee, she co-designed a program with young people experiencing homelessness, with the aim of increasing the knowledge on oral health and health issues generally, to encourage changes in health behaviour and engagement with services. At the core of her work, Andrea values co-production and multi-agency collaboration. She reached out to and worked with the young people, non-governmental organisations and NHS boards in Scotland to co-design workshops on 8 wider health topics related with youth trajectories and social participation. This led to a knowledge exchange programme on youth homelessness between Scotland and Brazil. There's always a connection there, isn't there? I remember when Scotland beat Brazil in Paris for the World Cup. Goodness, that was a day. And Alan Brazil, of course. Anyway, I'm not being facetious. This is a wonderful, wonderful piece of work. When I see the words Scotland and Brazil together, my brain goes funny. Anyway, throughout the project, these young people felt safe. They felt safe and they felt confident to express their views and to engage with policy-making decisions that affect them. In the Public Engagement Project of the Year category, the university received 23 strong applications. And they'd like particularly to commend the work of the teams behind the Science at Home kits and Home for Home projects. But the winner of the Public Engagement Project of the Year is the Educational Comics team. Now, the Educational Comics team has created and published educational comics in partnership with charities, creative economies, and the health and education sectors. The comics tackle misunderstood medical conditions, complex scientific issues, and matters of public interest, resulting in increased knowledge and understanding for a range of audiences and stakeholders. The project has also supported the development of 23 comics artists, as well as generating new modes of knowledge production with project partners and the community. People directly affected by the conditions or themes tackled in the comics have reported that they have found new ways to discuss their health conditions with professionals and with their families. Others have gained a better understanding of these conditions. Since the pandemic, the team has created 2 comics highlighting life transitions experienced by students and teachers during this time in the context of mental health strategies. And these comics were considered as part of the Scottish Government's pandemic response. The selection panel praised the breadth and depth of the engagement and its ability to transform the lives of communities, to inform research and policy initiatives and beyond. So congratulations. And goodbye all of you. I think I've come to the end of my duties for this year, and I'll repeat my earnest hope that next year will be in Dundee when I'll be able to hand over the 11th awards personally. It would give me such pleasure. But meanwhile, many thanks for bearing with me. Thank you for all your work in making these awards the success that they are. Good luck for opening up over the course of the next year as the tight sphincteral muscles of lockdown are slowly relaxed. That's a terrible metaphor, but you know what I mean. Here's to freedom, and here's to health, and here's to hope. God bless you all. Bye-bye.
Well, thanks, Stephen. And here's to Scotland actually beating Brazil, which should be great, as long as I can be there for it. Well, we really do hope that we can persuade Stephen and his diary to be with us next year. But, well, you've heard the winners, and incredibly well-deserved winners they are. I really wish we could jump up and down and yell and scream I know the winners can see me on camera and I'm waving at them. Well done, everybody. But let's hear from them. Let's hear about this really stunning public engagement that Steve has been talking about. And the individuals, and in one case, the team, are going to jump up and give us the presentations now, one after another. And we're going to start with, and I'm not going to make it sound as poetic as Stephen did, the Engaged Early Career Researcher of the Year, Laura Jones. Laura, over to you.
Thank you. And firstly, thank you so much to the selection panel for choosing me to receive this award. I'm genuinely delighted. That was so exciting. And I'm so pleased to get this recognition for work that I'm really proud of, but also that I think so important. I'm delighted to be in a position to do this work. The work I'll be talking about today is my PhD research, and it's a collaborative project with Dundee Violence Against Women Partnership, supported closely by the Protecting People team at Dundee Health and Social Care Partnership, and funded by the Scottish Graduate School of Social Sciences. There, got the important bits in. My research looks at the role of relationships and identity for women exiting from involvement in prostitution. This isn't cheerful, so please do just mute me if you're not in a good space to engage with that today. The joy of being online is that nobody will know. Can I have my first slide, please? So to start with, I wanted to give you just a little bit of background on the issues for women exploited into the sex trade and why this work's going on to improve support for them. So research tells us that women involved in prostitution experience much higher levels of physical violence and assault than the general population. One UK-based study found that a woman selling sex is 15 times more likely to be murdered than I am as a woman who's not involved in prostitution. For both on-street and off-street prostitution, there's lots of studies which confirm high levels of violence and assault. We also know that for many women exploited into the sex trade, prostitution itself constitutes violence. Perhaps unsurprisingly, we know that continued and sustained complex trauma is very common within the sex trade. Many women involved in the research have diagnosed PTSD. Many others have fragmented memories and experience dissociation. For some, this results even after exiting in being unable to connect with partners or even their children. Many women counter this trauma through the use of substances or alcohol, and there are higher levels of addiction within the sex industry than there are in the general population. We also know that the sex industry is built upon and intertwined with histories of racism and colonialism, and has a particularly negative impact on Black women and women of colour. A Scottish study looking at the forums which men who buy sex use reveals they tend to categorise women by ethnicity. In New Zealand, Maori women are overrepresented in the sex industry, and researchers reveal similar trends with native Canadians and also with Indigenous populations in Australia. Despite all this, women in the sex industry are largely unable to successfully advocate for themselves, and in many circumstances, they're not considered to be credible witnesses. The police are not considered a protective force. 3 women in my very small sample have been introduced into prostitution by police officers. In recognition of the multiple complexities and disadvantages prostituted women face, these are just some of the many I've highlighted here. Adequate support for women is absolutely essential. Can I have my next slide, please? So this is where my doctoral research starts from. My research looked at support for women involved in prostitution in Dundee. For some women, a successful support relationship can make the difference between being able to exit from exploitation or remaining entrenched with all the associated dangers. Many women are particularly isolated, and a supportive worker might be the first non-exploitative relationship they've experienced. The benefits of getting this right are substantial. For workers in this sector and in the area of sexual violence more generally, there are high levels of burnout and vicarious trauma, as well as high staff turnover. So finding safe ways to support with robust boundaries in place has benefits to the entire sector. So on to my research. The first stage of research involved interviews with 29 practitioners. I was a support worker myself before I became a PhD student, and I used to support women in prostitution as part of that role. So I really wanted to capture and build on the existing expertise that I know exists in the sector. This PhD has been immensely collaborative from its conception. It's funded jointly with Dundee Violence Against Women Partnership, and this has been incredibly valuable in terms of getting access to gatekeepers to then access participants. This is reflected in the range of practitioners who contributed. You can see here that we're inundated with logos representing contributors and collaborators, and the views and experiences of all these professionals were captured. So you can see this includes the NHS, social work, Police Scotland, and lots of workers from the third sector and voluntary sectors. The emphasis of these interviews was to capture the experiences of any professionals that women may currently come into contact with, and to understand their working practices, as well as their expert opinions on the issues that women face. I've sought feedback through knowledge exchange at every stage of the research. As the project's progressed, this has included more and more practitioners from a more diverse range of organisations, and this has been immensely valuable, both in terms of gathering their experiences, but also with raising awareness amongst practitioners of the issues women involved in prostitution might face. I continue to meet monthly with the Dundee Commercial Sexual Exploitation Working Group, which is made up of practitioners of a particular interest in addressing this issue. This constant conversation and ongoing invitation for feedback and knowledge sharing has strengthened the research and meant that I'm producing outputs that I can be competent, have practical value, as well as, hopefully, being academically interesting. So I have my next slide, please. So the first of hopefully many of these outputs is the Dundee Multi-Agency Guidance for Commercial Sexual Exploitation. And this is pictured here. So how did this come about? Well, following on from my practitioner interviews, I fed back to the group some practitioner concerns about working in the sector. In response, the CSE working group collaborated to produce this guidance, which addresses those concerns, and therefore it helps improve practitioner competence, as well as heading towards a better and more cohesive support offer for prostituted women in Dundee. The document sticks closely in many ways to the initial concerns raised by practitioners in my research. For example, practitioners said they were worried about offending a woman by asking her if she was a prostitute, so sometimes they'd avoid the issue entirely. The guidance suggests alternative language, but it also offers advice on creating a safe environment for disclosures. Practitioners also expressed concerns about inadequate referral procedures. So, for example, a woman needing immediate help with addictions may be put on a waiting list for 8 weeks and then sent a letter. So a letter is not adequate for someone who may be homeless or precariously housed, and 8 weeks is far too long. Alongside creating the guidance, the group worked to streamline referral processes, and these are detailed in the document with referral forms including in the appendix, which means that practitioners can easily access that and the new streamlined referral processes. Practitioners also reported feeling that they were alone in their drive to address this issue, and often they felt it was a low priority. Many practitioners take on a role such as prostitution lead or champion on top of their normal role without any additional budget or training, and this challenging work is reliant on individual drive and passion. Often services are also working with job insecurity and a lack of continuous funding for the work they do. For many, it took all their time and energy just to get a seat at the table to begin discussions, leaving no space and time to do the complicated and often emotionally draining work of moving things forward. The production of this guidance is the beginning of ongoing work to form networks and make noise to elevate the voices of prostituted women and their support needs, as well as the requirements of practitioners to safely work in this sector. Following on from the launch of the guidance in January, I've been delivering knowledge exchange sessions, introducing it to practitioners, and having conversations about how they might wish to apply it within their own practice, and these are ongoing. I'm so excited about the potential that winning this award affords for extending the reach of the research and raising awareness of these issues with more practitioners, decision makers, and with the public more broadly. Improving what support for women in prostitution really does need everybody. If I could have my next slide or not. Following on from the practitioner interviews, I conducted interviews with women who've exited from prostitution. and also with women currently accessing a variety of services in Dundee. This work's very fresh, but I'd love to share with you some initial areas that have been raised to give you a sense of the topics covered and also the direction of travel for the research going forwards. Women accessing services currently in Dundee spoke particularly highly of the value of connecting with positive peers, particularly in groups. They spoke in particular about the power of being in a group of women who are identified not as women who are involved in prostitution or women in addiction or women within the criminal justice service, but rather just as a group of women. They spoke of the joy of being in a space where you don't have to constantly repeat your story and explain yourself, but rather a space where you're a member of a choir or someone who does art or writing or learning to cook or playing football or climbing Monroe's hill walking groups were particularly popular. The difficulties of quantitatively measuring these benefits means that these groups are often overlooked, but for the women I'm speaking to, they have a central and core role in allowing them to identify their own value of work. It gives them an hour or so a week where they can forget everything else and just get engaged with the activity they're doing. This was often in direct contrast to many experiences that were reported of feeling excluded and unwelcome in public places, but also in services where they often felt they were ignored, undermined, and not believed. For those who had formed positive relationships with a support worker, this was frequently transformational. One participant even described it as life-saving. A number of women who had received this support went on to try and give this experience to others through peer support. For many women, this was their way to feel they were giving something back and using their experiences in a positive way. Similar experiences were echoed by the group of exited women I spoke to, many of whom now spend their time in activism to attempt to stop any more women experiencing what they did within the sex industry. They spoke to the value of peer networks and support. One woman I spoke to had been driven to exit from prostitution, having read the words that another had shared on her own blog about exiting. For women across the research, connecting and having a positive direction in which to channel their experiences was immensely valuable. There was, however, too many stories of missed opportunity. Women asked why nobody questioned when they were falling asleep in college, why frequent sexual health checks were not picked up on, why the premises they were exploited in were allowed to continue to operate in plain sight, and why their many exploiters never saw justice. I'm just coming to the end of interviewing now, but I've been absolutely blown away by the women's generosity with their time and experience in support of this work. I'm particularly pleased that the practitioner networks which I've grown and continue to connect with through knowledge exchange are in place, ready to share and learn from the experiences of these women. And it feels like there's real potential to make positive change in this area. That's probably enough from me for today, but I just wanted to finish by saying thank you again and inviting you all to stay in touch with me and the project. If you have ideas, I'd love to hear them, and I can't wait to share with you all where the research goes next. Thank you.
Wonderful work, Laura, and congratulations again. And for me, you know, there are many things that have come out from your presentation there, but one of the strongest things for me is the value of interchange between practice and research and practice, both as a practitioner coming into research and reaching out to practice. And that is a great exemplar for so much of our most important research work. And also, you've really engaged with a broad range of partners, and I should shout out for all of our fantastic partners in delivering public exchange. So, ladies and gentlemen, please do ask questions. I've been monitoring the Q&A, and it's fantastic to see the recognition of some of the great work that we've been hearing about. But do take the opportunity to ask some questions, and we'll pick up on them in Q&A when we get to the end of the three presentations. But let's move on to the next winner. Another very, very exciting project, a very exciting presentation. This time, the Engaged Researcher of the Year, Andrea Rodriguez. Andrea, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I was thinking what I'm going to say today. I got very emotional since I knew about the results, looking back to my path, since I left Brazil and all the way to get here, working a new sector with another language. I can just say I'm extremely happy with this award. I promised to myself not to cry, and I'm glad that I cannot see faces in front of me, otherwise it would be difficult. But I really want to say I'm happy for working in a place that values public engagement, happy with myself as well for creating more opportunities of keeping doing public engagement. This is part of my identity. It's what I like to do. And this award means a lot to me. So thank you for my colleagues at School of Dentistry, across university, my non-academic partners, the NGOs in Scotland and Brazil, especially the young people I have met in this process. It's a pleasure to work with all of you in such interesting fields of public health and equalities, and with people that really wants to make the difference. You can pass the slides, please. The next one. This is me, the next one, please. Okay, so here we have some of our partners in this project, organizations from third sector, health boards and universities in Brazil and Scotland. You can pass, please. The next one. Okay, so just to start, I want to mention my background in community work in Brazil. Before working at university, I had worked for many years in third sector organizations in Rio de Janeiro as a frontline staff. Social psychology is my background, and these are photos of my participants and projects carried out in Maré, a set of favelas in Rio de Janeiro. 15 years ago, my understanding of the power of public engagement to change realities and to improve people's lives came from this experience, for sure. In these photos, you can see some of the young people I was working with. They were living in favelas, experienced social exclusion, poverty, violence, and I had to engage with them, to communicate and create new opportunities for them to develop their potentialities. I had to invite them to attend the project, getting them participating in the activities. Beyond this, I had to mobilize other partners to create joint strategies to address the problems we wanted to address. And I always question myself, how could I do this? How can I do this? They would not come to me easily. I had to go to them. So you can see some of the workshops delivered 15 years ago using art approach to discuss their realities. On the left down south, we have one of the participants speaking in an event with a professional from the juvenile justice system. And this involved a lot of preparation in advance to make this young person feel ready to occupy this space. And I know this moment made a difference for him, for his self-confidence, self-esteem, and also to improve the system that we wanted to improve. Next to it, you can see we are spending time together, going to other places in the city, or just walking inside the community to get to know each other. I'm just mentioning these public engagement activities from years ago because they are very similar with the challenges I am currently facing in Scotland, working with young people. I still do all these things. I'm just in another context, in another country with other people, but I want to say no matter the years of experience you have, going out and speak with the public, engaging with different people, never it's easy. It's a constant learning process. I still feel nervous each time I go because each interaction is unique. What works with one person doesn't work with another person. You never know what will happen. In fact, there is no recipe to follow. You need to keep being open to invent and reinvent your strategies and learning from them and learning from your mistakes as well. I realized looking to my past in third sector because of this award that I keep saying, I keep having similar challenges to engage with people, to communicate with people, and I follow the same principles of public engagement. You can pass the slide, please. And what are these principles? In my view, leaving the comfort zone, it's one of them. In fact, it's the first movement we need to do, leaving the walls of the organization, the institution, leaving this sense of safety and control of the situation, and going out where people are and listen to them and observing them and learning from this process of building trust relationships. I understood that you have to expose yourself as you're asking them to do the same. So if I can give an advice for those willing to engage with the public, I can say in this interaction, we need to be honest, transparent, and show empathy. This is essential. And be prepared if you want to engage and to communicate, because this process of going to encounter the other, you will find their diversity of aspects, and you may feel different emotions in this journey. You can laugh with them, you can cry as well, listen some of their stories, and it is okay. This happened in Brazil, this happened in Scotland, but I believe this is the best way to co-create a knowledge that should be collective, diverse and inclusive. Collective because we are working for and with people, diverse because we need to involve different people from different fields of knowledge, especially those with lived experience, and inclusive because the way we're going to do this, to involve people, should be based on their own terms and not in our terms. You can pass the slides, please. So here we have some of the work done in Scotland with young people. Initially, my engagement happened through a participatory research that co-produced a workshop program on health promotion and participation. We approached a key youth service in Edinburgh that provides supported accommodation for young people experiencing homelessness. We selected together 8 topics to talk about. The aim was to know their own definitions of wider health topics and their experience in assessing services, such as oral health, mental health, substance misuse, and so on. We used creative and art methods, as you can see, drawing, collage, to facilitate the discussion. You can pass the next slide. Okay, here are more photos of this experience. We put the young person in the center of this process, so we didn't want to pass a specific health knowledge directly without asking them first about their views and experience with healthcare services. We wanted them leading the talk, leading the reflection, and we were going from this, following them. After each workshop, we had a group discussion, a group agreement on what changes could be made by the participants from the discussions that we had together. This was a way of combining their knowledge, their own knowledge and experience with a new knowledge that we were creating together as a commitment for change on new health behavior. You can pass the new slide. The other slide, please. Okay. So a follow-up knowledge exchange program on youth homelessness was then developed in Scotland and afterwards in Brazil. This involved main events and several consultations with young people before and between the events. The title of this program came up from the consultations with young people and referred to the need of services and practitioners making efforts to welcome them in the services, making effort to support them, waiting for their time to change as well, and changing themselves as well through this interaction. Most important, to not giving up on them. Here we have participants from third sector, health boards, education, housing, local authorities, young people, researchers. You can pass these slides. So here we have the workshops. In the program, we had mixed activities with live bands, group discussions, theater of the oppressed, and capoeira. All of these had the aim of reflect on the young people's life trajectory through different services. They mentioned as a barriers to access the services and to engage with practitioners, lack of empathy coming from practitioners, lack of community of care, continuity of care, lack of autonomy to make decisions regarding their lives, lack of flexibility from services regarding protocols that is sometimes practitioners was more concerned to follow the protocol and tick the box than to see a person in front of them. And also they mentioned the shame for asking for help, how it's difficult to ask for help. Next slide, please. Okay, more photos of the theater of the oppressed is a set of techniques that was created in Brazil by Augusto Boal as a way to use the theater to discuss structures of power in society, and we accommodated this discussion to the young people and practitioners context. You can pass the slide. Yeah, so here we have photos of them, of participants producing a graffiti panel to close the program. This panel became a kind of symbol of our commitment to end youth homelessness, and it was fun to build together, but at the same time involved a collective reflection on the key message we wanted to pass with the panel. When you see these images of the workshops with young people participating, some of them were key speakers in the event, some were leading group discussions, they were expressing themselves using different methods, such as drama, capoeira. I have to say, none of this is easy. It looks like it's easy when you see the final result, but involved a huge amount of time and a hard work behind it. I have learned a big lesson from this program that actually the type of activity we will offer, it's important, should be attractive, creative, but what's more important is to spend time together, time to get to know each other and build trust. In the beginning, when I invited young people directly in the organization to attend the events, they said, no, we do not feel comfortable. We understand that it's a relevant issue, you understand the aim of the program, and I was trying to sell the best I could, the project. I tried to make a very good agenda for the days, but in the end, what made them come to the events and participate was the time that we could spent together the consultations that I did before the event, like a preparation for them, and also opportunity for them to get to know myself and people involved in the project. You can pass the slide, please. Okay, so here is just to finalize with the mutual process of learning and change that I believe we achieved together. So from my side, I can say I increased my inspiration, my motivation, my passion on keeping doing public engagement. I improved my knowledge on young people's context and practitioners' work as well. I increased my network. I improved my communication skills, my collaborative work, my interdisciplinarity. I was invited to be part of committees linked with the Scottish Government to inform policy on youth homelessness. And the program, in fact, informed 2 national reports on pathways for prevention, which is a dream for any researcher. A practitioner video training was produced as well from this program. The video shows the main recommendations to improve services and professional approaches toward young people. The video has subtitling in 3 languages, and it's placed in the SUI website, the Scottish University Insight Institute. I'm starting a new project this year to co-produce more training materials for those working in this field. There is a joint publication as well of a book chapter that I invited a young person to be with me in this construction, and a policymaker as well. So in the end, this was a huge experience to me, a huge learning. And I believe that in the end, the program promoted healthy equity in a wider sense. From the side of the young people, I could see them increasing their sense of belonging to the program. During the process, I see them increasing their trust on services. They increased knowledge on health and inequalities. They improved their communication skills, self-confidence. They broke some barriers with services, practitioners, and university, because they could listen the other side and understand there are challenges for both sides to interact with each other, practitioners, services, young people, university. We all have challenges to address and to improve our communication and engagement. So one side could listen the other side, and this was very good for us. Another thing that happens, some of them were invited to be part of a steering group at a policy level, which was an amazing outcome. And in the end, I can say there was an empowerment, not in a sense that we are giving power to them. I do not believe in this, but I believe in the role of university in terms of the creation of more opportunities for people with lived experience come together and feel safe and feel comfortable to raise their voices on issues that are affecting their lives, and to question structures of power in society. And I think this was achieved in this program. So I just finish here. Thank you so much. And if you want to get in touch, please send me a message to be part of future initiatives or to know more about this program. I'm very happy to talk about this afterwards. Thank you so much.
Andrea, another outstanding piece of work, so stimulating, and as you say, it might look easy, but I don't think anyone amongst us thinks that it is. And it's also a great exemplar partnership across the world, partnership with community, and partnership with colleagues in really making this engagement work and have impact. And partnership also, ladies and gentlemen, is absolutely key to the last of our presentations this afternoon. The final category, which is the Public Engagement Project of the Year, really is a partnership. It's a partnership between 3 schools and a university: humanities, education and social work, and the School of Art and Design, as well as a range of local artists and many other partners. It's really award-winning work, and here to present it we have Chris and Andrea and Gulnar. So guys, over to you.
Cheers. Thank you, Ian, and thank you, everybody. First of all, a big hello on behalf of the Educational Comics team. We're so happy that our project has been awarded Public Engagement Project of the Year. So thank you very much to the selection panel. I can see from the brilliant nominated projects that this must have been a very tough decision. Gulnar, Divya and I are here to speak about this project, but there's a much larger team involved, including Dr. Damon Herd from DJ CAD and Phil Vaughan, Myra Crow from Languages, and all the artists and partners that we worked with on this project over the years. I'm going to start off with a few introductory comments about the project and the infrastructure that has supported it before handing over to Gulnar and Divya to look at a couple of case studies. Next slide, please. So a few words about our background. The University of Dundee has become a leader in the emerging field of comics studies. This is a highly interdisciplinary area of research and teaching, and we've aspired to make an impact locally, nationally, and internationally. Our research has found that comics is a medium that has a huge and often unrecognised ability to educate by immersing readers within a narrative and engaging with the form, implicates them in a kind of problem solving. Comics are a powerful tool for the communication of information, in part due to the specific modalities of comics, the combination of word and image and sequential visual storytelling, and so on. In response to the university's transformation agenda, a multi-school team from across the university came together several years ago to work with partners to produce a range of comics that would address issues such as healthcare, science communication, education, local history and culture, and environmental issues, all using a practice research methodology. We've worked with the health and education sectors to create 20 public information comics to engage, inform, and hopefully inspire the public, and to support and develop comics as a creative economy in Dundee. Next slide, please. In order to do this, we built up the infrastructure to support public engagement through our research. We launched Dundee Comics Creative Space, which was co-funded by the Rank Foundation as a social enterprise in 2015. This organises events and after-school clubs and contains a comic studio, Inkpot, which has supported many comics creators, 23 on this project alone, who are all paid to work on our projects. We've also created an interdisciplinary research centre, the Scottish Centre for Comic Studies. This is based in humanities, but has members from across the university. We respond very proactively to the university research priorities of understanding and improving health and well-being and life-enhancing creativity and design. But of course, the transformation agenda is very much something which drives the work that we do. Next slide, please. Here's a map of the infrastructure we've created and an indication of the types of partners and funders that we've worked with. This is very much a knowledge exchange and public engagement machine and has served many projects, but the main one has been the Educational Comics Project, and we've collaborated with many schools across the university, many external partners, often attracting external funding to support this work. We've had collaborations with the Being Human Festival, which is run in Dundee by Dr. Daniel Cook, and that's been invaluable, and also worked with several past recipients of the Stephen Fry Public Engagement Award, such as Professor Jerry Cook and others. Next slide, please. Here are just some of the partners we've worked with. Several of them are charities. Our aim has been to create resources to assist these partners with their communication and public engagement strategies, using the unique and powerful attributes of the comics medium to address specific issues and problems. And the next slide, please. To do this, we developed a process of working based around a design sprint methodology. We call this the Comics Jam, and it is illustrated here on this slide by Damon Herd. This is an iterative dynamic process through which we retain expert knowledge at the heart of the creative journey. This is important as the comics tackle misunderstood medical conditions, complex scientific issues, and other public interest matters. The comics have been created on the basis of a felt need. We've often been approached by charities and individuals to develop comics in response to specific problems. The process is one of engaging experts, creatives, policymakers, and the public to design the comics, baking the key principles of engagement and collaboration into the co-design process from the start and taking them right through the launch of the comic and beyond. Finally, all our comics are available for download and distribution free of charge. I'll now hand over to Golnar to discuss one of our educational comics.
Thank you very much, Bruce. So just to provide one case example, I'm going to speak a little bit about a comic called When People Die. This comic gives voice to the often overlooked experiences of young people needing support due to bereavement. Around 45,000 UK school children experience the death of a parent or sibling every year, and bereavement is particularly significant in the backgrounds of young offenders. Notwithstanding these statistics, bereavement and discussions about grief remain overlooked in large parts of the community. Next slide, please. So, When People Die was a collaborative project with the University of Strathclyde and funded by the Scottish Universities Insight Institute. It involved working with 12 young people, 2 charities and the Young Offenders Institute at Polmont. And what we wanted to do working with these participants was to really honour their insights into bereavement. These were participants who had experienced bereavement directly, although we didn't ask them to reflect on that in this project. But what we wanted to do was to keep their expertise and their suggestions for how young people can be best supported by parents, teachers, their peers and other members of their community. The project took about 2 years to complete, and it involved the research team training in how to speak about bereavement with young people, and then entailed a number of workshops with the participants and artists involved in the project. Since its launch, we have distributed more than 4,000 paper copies of the comic, both in the UK and internationally, and there's been more than almost 2,500 downloads from across 30 countries. The work has generated significant and ongoing impacts for the young people involved in the project, their communities, and has been taken up by charities such as Good Life, Good Death, Good Grief, schools across Scotland, hospices, the Golden Charter Network, among others. Next slide, please. And to provide some insights into the ways in which some of the participants and others have responded to the project, one young person whose baby brother had died described the comic as, and I quote, an outlet for the feelings I may have kept inside, and she also reflected that participating provided her with an opportunity to help other young people. Next slide, please. One of the charities that was involved in the project was the Children's Hospices across Scotland, and the participants from this charity were supported with a bereavement counsellor, Janet O'Connor. And Janet explained the usefulness of the comic in starting conversations with both parents and children to explore the impact of bereavement. And in her feedback to us, Janet highlighted the informal style of the comic as being particularly useful in generating the therapeutic and healthy conversations about grief. Next slide, please. And finally, the Children and Young People's Commission of Scotland stated that the work puts the experiences of young people at the heart of a powerful tool that children, their families and professionals can use to help children understand death and bereavement, and that this allowed for a shared understanding of a very emotive experience. So just with some of these items of feedback, I think we can see that there's a real need to communicate differently about grief and to really honour the experiences of a wide range of people, including young people who experience some of its after effects. And now I'll hand over to Divya. Thank you.
Hello, so I'll be talking about fibromyalgia and ischemic. Fibromyalgia is a chronic pain and fatigue condition. There is widespread pain, extreme sensitivity to touch, muscle stiffness, difficulty sleeping, and cognitive dysfunction called fibrofog. And fibrofog, in a way, is like when we're watching Stephen Fry's video rebooting, and that's, if you can imagine that happening for somebody with fibromyalgia. And there is no known cure. 200 to 400 million people worldwide have fibromyalgia. That is 3 to 6% of the world's population. Yet the awareness of the condition is low in the general public and amongst healthcare professionals. It is poorly understood, managed, and supported. It is indeed an invisible condition. Therefore, we created this comic on the request of a pain clinic psychologist. Next slide, please. Fibromyalgia and ischemic aim to raise awareness of fibromyalgia by highlighting unique lived experiences of 4 people who have fibromyalgia, their families, and a GP and physiotherapist who are supporting people with fibromyalgia. This comic was launched in November 2017, and in the last 3 years, we've had over 14,000 unique downloads of the comic from over 86 countries. And 2,000 plus paper copies were distributed in the UK on request. It was covered in 25 national and international newspapers, along with radio and TV news stories. There were 30,000 views of an article on the comic featured on the Mighty A Chronic Illness website, and this was overnight and led to such a lot of load on their website that it crashed. The comic was distributed to MPs as part of a fibromyalgia awareness campaign and received cross-party support in an early day motion in the UK Parliament. The comic was translated into Spanish by popular demand. We have had feedback that there has been a significant impact on understanding fibromyalgia, as well as the comic magnifying the voice of those who have often been marginalized or silenced. Next slide, please. For those involved in the development of the comic, it has afforded them a voice, providing important validation, often after years of health-related issues. One project participant wrote, "It was a moment of pure catharsis. All the years of health-related anger and holding health-related information in my head were gone. Instead, when I saw the finished comic, I felt incredibly proud. Seeing it allowed me to offload years of baggage." Next slide, please. The comic's significance has also been felt by readers, with many commenting on the relief of finally having something that validated their lived experiences. One reader said, "It's so easy to doubt what you're experiencing, and that's the scariest part, let alone explaining it to anyone. These comics really do resonate with all invisible, misunderstood illnesses." Another reader in their 70s, whose diagnosis took over 25 years, said, "It is so hard to explain even to well-meaning people what fibromyalgia is and how it affects me. I tend to hold most of my symptoms inside even when I'm close to tears. Because I don't look sick, this comic is amazing." Next slide, please. In conclusion, our interdisciplinary research in the fields of comic studies, education, creativity and art, science and health has come together to co-design educational comics with the real experts, those with the lived experiences. And thank you to all those experts for sharing their stories with us. We've learned a lot from everyone. We believe that together, our comics work embodies the vision of the university to transform lives locally and globally. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you'll agree with me. You've heard 3 amazing stories of public engagement over the last hour or so. And what's so impressive is there are so many other amazing stories of public engagement from around our community. And that's something that I truly believe we should as a community be immensely proud of. Now we've got a few minutes left. We are advertised to finish at 3 p.m, but we can go a few minutes beyond that if people are able to stay on. We've had a few questions asked. Mostly what we've seen in the Q&A is colleagues, and I'm looking at my colleagues who have just won awards, is incredible admiration and shout out for the amazing work you've done. And you really do deserve all of our community's most heartfelt congratulations. But there are three basic thoughts that come out of the questions that I'd quite like to explore with each of the teams. And what I suggest we do is I ask the questions, and then one team's going to have to go first. So whoever wants to go first needs to stick their hand up so I can call them out. And if you don't, I'll pick one. But the three questions are going to apply to all three teams. And they're really great questions that have come out. And the first question, let me ask them all together. The first question is, you've all worked quite disadvantaged, quite vulnerable, and indeed communities that are prejudged, and you've achieved a heck of a lot with them. So what are the kind of main rays of hope that have come out of your work in working with these vulnerable communities who are the subject of so much prejudice? The second question is, where do you go next? I mean, it's such amazing work, and of course, as well as having a trophy, you all get a little bit of resource to take your work forward. So I think the audience would love to hear, what comes next. And in the third one, and I'm really delighted this question's been asked because it really does show we're engaging. For those who are just starting out in public engagement and want to emulate you, what are your main words of advice? Chris has got his hand up, so let's go for the team first of all. Chris, over to you.
I will address myself to the last one about what advice and encouragement to give to others looking to do public engagement work. I mean, I think obviously kind of getting out into the communities is vitally important, and finding ways to do that. But also bringing the community into the university. Obviously, we've been in lockdown for the last year, and we've found other ways of working. But also, lots of people in the city and local community might not have regular contact with the university. Might not think of the campus as a place for them. And one of the things that I think that the university has been really good at doing over the last several years, and these public engagement awards have been massively important in that as well, has been making the campus a welcoming place, and a place that is not an intimidating place, but a place where lots of activity is, exciting activity and socially relevant, engaged activity is happening. So bringing people into the campus, getting out there, but also I guess I would say the delightful, the wonderful realization that the engagement, we're celebrating our engagement with the public, but that engagement is never one way. The public is hugely engaging for us. They engage us, they give us ideas, and the partners that we work with truly propel our thinking and our research. So the public engagement that we're involved with is very much a two-way street, and has massive benefits for research and the life of the university. So anybody thinking about getting involved in public engagement, I'm sure I speak for others here, do feel free to get in contact with us and ask us what advice we could give. But I would say those things are quite important to consider.
Thanks, Chris. So open, interchange, two-way, welcoming, I think all great words of advice. Right, so we've got all others, sir. I'm going to pick on somebody if I don't see a hand coming up quite soon. There we go, Laura, well done.
I was also going to first speak to that third question about someone starting out, because I'm just starting out, because I'm in just gone into the third year of my PhD, so maybe I'm in a good position to speak to that. So I didn't realise I was doing public engagement. I thought I was cheating a little bit by getting loads of people to help me out with my research and kind of gathering all these ideas. So I would say the idea that public engagement has to be something separate or something extra isn't my experience. I know for some people they can do great work by making it a standalone project, but for me, actually, it's been really informative throughout my research process, and I feel that it feels strange to me to say that I'm engaging the public when actually it feels like I'm just forming lots and lots of partnerships with people who give me great insight and advice. So if you're able to kind of arrange a project whereby you can kind of harness that knowledge and that expertise, that can be really helpful. In terms of the other two, talking about kind of hopeful steps forward with sections of the community who do experience vast amounts of stigma and prejudice. I tend to believe the best in people, and I always have. I'm quite an optimist. I believe that actually one of the ways that you can combat that is through education, and public engagement is one of the best ways of doing that. For me, quite often I'll run a session and some of the feedback will be people saying, I didn't realise that, how can I help? So actually I think that public engagement is really central to addressing some of that prejudice and stigma in these areas. And I imagine that that's probably a familiar story to other people working with other potentially marginalised communities. And the final question about where's next, I've got so many ideas. I can't wait to narrow them down. For me, I think it will be more broadly about kind of engaging the general public. Lots of my work has been around engaging practitioners. So I'm really excited to kind of really broaden that reach and see who else we can get on board.
Sounds fantastic, Laura. Right, so I'm going to pick one. Gulnar.
Thank you, Ian. Yeah, I was thinking about the third question initially as well, and I think what's really heartening about these projects is the way that, as Laura has just been commenting on as well, the way that starting from a really kind of organic place, so following one's, for example, research interests or community interests is a really good way to initiate the project. And I think, like any interaction, you know, whether you're interacting with other researchers potentially or community members, charities and other organisations, people respond very well to that kind of organic line of interest. And what I think we've found really heartening is the way that a sense of community starts to be generated quite quickly, actually, once that project has commenced. So I would encourage everyone who's interested in pursuing public engagement projects to really identify their areas of interest to begin with, and to kind of just start small and see where it takes you, because there are a lot of opportunities for connection. And what I think we found too is that once a project starts to come together, then it's quite easy for that to kind of snowball and kind of grow arms and legs in a really productive way. And then once that project is kind of up and running, then it becomes possible to reach out to, for example, other charities, other organisations with a more kind of formed project idea that you can then present to others. So that's what I would say regarding the third question.
Thank you. Thank you, Gulnar. Divya, why don't you fill in while we work out Andrea's mute button?
Okay. So for me, public engagement isn't an add-on. That is a process that happens all the way through, and your research then entwines with that as we go on, if we really want to make a difference or an impact. What I found works really well is to have, and in some ways Andrea mentioned that about coming out of your comfort zone, active listening, making sure that the stories we have been telling or the way we are doing it are authentic, and making sure that process we have mutual trust and respect for the partners we are engaging with. Those all have really fed into our comics, and you can see that, and I think that is why those comics worked, because what we were doing we were talking about the lived experiences and real things. So it wasn't something an academic had gone and created. It was actually different people's voice. So I think for anybody wanting to start public engagement, it is about listening to what the community, even in the university or outside the university, in Dundee community, and Dundee is a brilliant place for that because there are so many opportunities to engage with different organizations and different people. So looking out for that and starting to create that network, which is a sort of, if you like, and I think Principal said earlier about the interrelationship between research and practice, but also with the community, and really living that about university being one of the places where we do most of the community-based work.
Fantastic, thank you, Divya. So let's see if Andrea is unmuted now. Andrea?
Yes, I think. Can you hear me?
Wonderful.
Yeah, good. Yeah, this question I try to reflect, and I try to bring as well in my talk. I truly believe that it's important for us to discuss principles and how to do public engagement in a practical way. We all know that's something that should be done, that is important, essential, but sometimes it's something that's abstract. So students or even professionals, sometimes there is a lack of ideas how to do this in a practical way. My first tip is reserve time to do public engagement, because this is not something that happens quickly. It's not easy, it's a process, and we need to acknowledge this when we are going to do our frameworks, our timelines, when we are going to discuss with funders, the time available, the time that should be reserved to do public engagement, is huge, because it's based on trust, on build trust relationships. So we need to get to know each other, have the time to leave our comfort zone and to go where they are in their territories and learn from them, and adapt our language and be ready to feel discomfort, to feel strange, and to insist to overcome this phase, because this will happen for sure. And doesn't matter the years of experience. As I said, I still feel insecure sometimes, I still feel uncomfortable sometimes, but because I believe that this is the process that we need to insist, because in the end what happens, it's amazing. It's amazing collaborative work, it's amazing dialogue that we establish, and we can see university and communities and services reducing the barriers between them, reducing the distance, but we need to have time to do this.
Wonderful. Well, you've heard it from real practitioners, people who have achieved so much, real success. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid we've run out of time, so we need to draw this to a close now. I want to thank everybody, all of you, for engaging with us in this public engagement event over the last hour and a half. Much more to come. Hopefully you've got a taster for some of the things that colleagues around the university are doing, and indeed you're engaged in with us. I want to, as ever, give my most profound thanks, our most profound thanks to Stephen Fry, and we do hope that he will be able to join us next year, which would really make it a landmark event. Until then, continue to engage. Thank you for everyone. Congratulations to everyone we've heard today, whether you've been selected as a winner or not. It's all outstanding work. Thank you very much, and hope to see you at the University of Dundee again sometime soon. Bye-bye.